What's up, guys? It's your bros here from Gold Dang Bros Gaming here with a very special guest, Calvin Connor. We got the opportunity to spend the weekend in Mexico with this man. He was our roommate, helped us out, tested with Tiger, played a few games with me, but I ended up having to do other things. But it was such a great time to hang out. So I want to give him a chance to introduce himself, but before I do, let's hear a little bit about his accomplishments. Cal, like I said, is a very accomplished player if you don't know. First place in Toronto in 2024. World Championship last year was 14th place. And then in 2022, he captured 9th place just out of the top 8 of the world's competitors. So, Cal, the mic's yours. Do you want to go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yep. My name's Calvin Connor. I'm from Seattle, and I play the Pokemon TCG. I'm currently in college right now as well, but I mostly just do the TCG.
Awesome.
Okay, so a couple quick questions about you, Cal. How long have you been playing Pokemon?
I started playing the Pokemon TCG in 2011, I believe, back in the junior division was my first year. And then I played a little bit in the senior division. And then I took a break from 2016 to 2021.
Okay. And then came back firing, apparently going straight to Worlds almost a year right after that.
Yeah.
So, who's your favorite Pokemon?
If I had a favorite, I'd have to say Lugia or Gardevoir.
Okay. And what got you started? Was it family, just locals? Just what made you want to get into Pokemon?
I started playing Pokemon at the mall. Really. There was this place called Uncle's Games that was running like a league night, and that's where I started playing.
Okay, just found a local that was wanting to do some stuff, and you jumped in it. I like it. You do say, when we were talking in Monterrey, you said you've got family that plays Pokemon as well. You were saying you're the only TCG player, though. What do the rest of your family do?
They do the VGC. My brother, I have two brothers that do the VGC. My dad does the VGC as well, but he dabbles a little bit with the TCG also. But mainly my brothers do the VGC. They do, one's a junior right now, and the other one's a master now, but he used to play when he was a senior and a junior.
Nice.
Family Pokemon players.
Right? Family that plays together stays together.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Yeah, first off, we just got back from Monterrey. Before we get into the competitive side of it, my little experience of it, beautiful city. I mean, just aside from the tropical storm they had the last night that I was soaked, these guys saw me come back crazily wet. But beautiful city, mountains in distance, a little hot, but it was comfy. I know we had tons of good food. Got to go to a Brazilian steakhouse, which was probably the highlight of our trip. What about you, Cal? You were down there too. What was your highlight of Monterrey?
There was really great scenery, to be honest, and I really enjoyed the food, I would say.
Awesome.
Cool. I know we tried a few different places. What if you were to recommend one of the places that you tried down there to people going to the next event? What would you tell them?
It's really tough. There was a lot of good places. I would just say more so some of the local places would be probably be the best place to go.
Yeah, get some food and spices and taste that you can't get back home. I know our dollar goes a lot farther there. Tacos on the street, where I mean $1 or $2 in USD compared to what they were charging in pesos. So yeah, I think with Cal's recommendation there, anybody going to Mexico, definitely check out some street food. I know I had some great stuff. But we'll go ahead and get into the gameplay. So at Monterrey, we all three played. Calvin, you did a little bit better than out of the three of us. You got 42nd with a 9-3-1 record. Tiger got 164, right? I had that right?
162.
162. Okay, a little off on the numbers, my bad. At 7-4-2, had a solid day one. Me, not so great, 3-2-3, trying to break that 4-win barrier at a regional. I don't play much, but as these guys have told me, for someone who doesn't play as much, that's not a bad record. Didn't lose to anybody that wasn't from America. So, my two losses are American players that came from over like we did. So I can take a little plus in that. But a little more on your guys' play. We'll start with you, Tiger. How was your day 1 into day 2?
Day 1 started a little shaky. I started 1-1-1 and then put it into gear and went 6-1-1 at the end of the day. I played what we call Ghost Pepper Cheese, which is just Goldango with Dust Noirs in it. It really helped in a lot of matches. There were quite a few times I took 4 prize turns because of using double Dust Noir plus a Goldango KO to reflip the prize trade. But day 2 happened. I just didn't have as good of a time. Hit some control-y stuff that I couldn't deal with as well, like a double Toad Scroll, a double Cornerstone. Just enough shenanigans that was a little out of my reach. And then we have Cal. What did you play and how did your run go?
I ended up getting top 64, 931 with Dustnor Dragapult. I had a little bit of a shaky day 1. I ended up starting off 2-2-1, which is usually not like a really great start to a tournament when you bare minimum need a 5-2-1 record to make the second phase. I was able to win the next 3 rounds in a row, though, to make a day 2, and then I was able to win the next 3 rounds next day, or 2 rounds, and then I lost 1, and then I was able to win the last 2, going 4-1 in day 2.
Yeah, because if you would have ended up squeaking out the 5-0, would you still have been able to make top cut, or would have just been right out of bubble?
I think it would have been the bubble because most of the players at the top, for some reason, a few of the players that got up-paired, they decided to tie themselves out of the tournament, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Some of them should have played that last round out with some of those other players that had hit them because they had more match points and they had less. But maybe they had thought that they were safe if they had made a tie. But with them making the tie, they essentially had made it so that a record of I don't remember exactly how many match points, but I think it was a record of X2-1 would not make it, and only X1-2 would make it, essentially. So if one of them of the 2 had played that round out instead of tying, then there would have theoretically been one with higher points and then one with lower points that makes it, meaning that the bracket of X2-1s would have all made it, but they decided to tie. Maybe they were misinformed, or maybe they just didn't know, or maybe they just made a mistake, who knows, but yeah, so that ended up making it so that none of the ties made it in, and none of the X2-1s made it in, and only people with 10 wins, 2 ties, and 1 loss made it in.
It just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah,
Unless
guys,
the game's ended, I don't know. We'll get into that subject.
The skinny of what he just said there, guys, is if you're not 100% sure that you've got it locked up, play your match. Like, if you don't know, you don't have 100% information, just play the match. Because if you win, you're guaranteed. If you lose, your tie didn't do anything anyway. But, alright.
I mean, any other comments from the tournament before we get into... Because I know my big topic is the new time rules. I know everybody wants to hear about that. Anything else on the tournament before we go into that that you can think of? Maybe important, it goes into Pittsburgh or the rest of the season?
Wi-Fi there was trash. Wi-Fi was horrible. But anything other than the bad internet? You got anything else?
I had to keep walking in and out of the venue to get Wi-Fi to see my matches and who I was going to play next.
And then you had to go all the way back around, back through a rigorous bag check, which, I mean, good on them. I expect that, but we're going all the way around to come back in. Yeah, timing on it was not great whatsoever.
Day 2 was a little easier when there were less people trying to search and use the internet. Was able to use the internet inside the actual venue. I don't know about everybody else, but I know that once it cut down to about 250 of us, give or take, playing, that the internet was way easier to use.
Yeah. So the next big thing up here is this is the first chance I know we got to play in the 50+1 era, I guess to call it. Same thing for Cal over there. As a judge, I don't know. I see where they're going with it, with the 60 minutes, trying to cut the rounds down to 60 minutes. Add just the 1 turn. The biggest problem is you still have calls that still add on more time. That still then you have another judge watching that time. Plus, it affects the gameplay. In my opinion, I don't feel like a lot of games are going to finish in Pittsburgh. I feel like a lot of games are going to be ties, or people are going to have to be forced to play a ton faster. I mean, for example, I played in a match against the Garde. Long game 1, I was watching the time, 21 minutes before I scooped. I was trying to pull a win out. I thought I had it. Found out the line wasn't there. From, playing with these guys, I learned it's time to scoop, keep going. Played an 8-minute at most game. Literally soloed the whole field. It wasn't all 6 prizes. I think it's 4 Pokemon knocked out, but he couldn't get anything up with just a baby Dango. Using not the 100 attack and not shuffling it back in to catch the win. But then we still never finished that game 3 with, 20 minutes left?
Mm-hmm.
Still never got to finish in that game 3. I know that was my experience with the 50+1. I kind of want to hear what these guys got to say, and then we'll react a little more. So, special guest here, Calvin, we'll shoot it to you first. How do you feel about the 50+10?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do 50-minute best of 1, or 50 minutes best of 3 with the 1 extra turn. Essentially, you have roughly like 16 and a half minutes per game if you're actually going to finish 3 games. But for like most decks in the format, like Dragapult's very popular, Gardevoir is very popular, even Goldengo at some points is not going to be able to finish games very quickly against some of those other decks because you're playing against some of those lower decks that play like long games where like they're doing you in the early game and they're just kind of like set up. So those games are just going to naturally take 25 to 30 minutes sometimes. And this isn't even taken into account prize checking and stuff like this as well, or just like natural time that people take to make their plays, or sometimes longer plays where they're like thinking of a long turn, or shuffling to an extent as well. This isn't even taken into a factor, all those things. So 16 minutes or 16 and a half minutes per game to finish 3 it's a little ridiculous. It's not always going to happen. And then to take into account that you're playing against sometimes newer players as well, that it's their first regional or they haven't had much experience. So they're kind of like having to read your cards sometimes, or sometimes figure out like exactly how a card interaction works, where like I had a few opponents where they didn't necessarily know like, oh, if you Phantom Dive and you knock out a Pokemon, can I still use Phasandipity? Which sometimes for like a newer player, they might not understand stuff like this because they like might think that you can't because of Phasandipity and stuff like this. So then they have to like kind of really think about this. Some of them call judges or try to figure out like if what rulings would be. Like some just plays like this in general where they don't necessarily know, which just kind of kills time. And sometimes this time just gets lost because like if they come and call a judge and the judge just answers it like really quickly, it might like take like a minute or so. But like if this happens like multiple times throughout the game, then it's like killing like a minute basically per time of them not knowing where something's happening, and it's just lost time, and it's all going to add up towards the end to where necessarily even if your opponent's not trying to stall time or they're trying to waste time, they just kind of are wasting time.
100%. Like, and the interaction thing that you're talking about is completely true. Like, I took Poison to Milwaukee this past year, and the interaction of a lot of the newer players came up that they didn't understand that Poison doesn't trigger Phasandipity. So the same thing with the Phantom Dive, the damage counters trigger, but Poison is an in-between turn effect that a lot of players don't really understand because they just know that their Pokemon dies.
Yeah, exactly.
So the KOs. Pokemon don't die, people. They just faint. So that is 100% true. And if they go to do an action, it's player integrity for the opponent to say, no, you can't do that. But at some of these events, they let their opponent fail and do it on purpose so they can get the judge call. That takes out more time than you just saying, hey, you can't do that. So it almost adds...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it almost adds a need for extra player integrity to make sure that people don't make the mistakes so we can play faster. Because they don't always give us the time extension for a play mistake.
Yeah, and on that last note with new players, both of you guys have talked about it. Seeing the growth in the game over the last 2 years. I remember our first tournament the first tournament I ever went to was like 400 people big in Richmond in 2019 when I first started. Mm-hmm. Now we're at 4,000 easily at US, almost 3,000 in Mexico total players.
Yeah.
If we look at just a TCG, we're talking 1682, I believe was the number.
That was just for Masters, yeah.
There's a lot of players that are jumping in the game, which is great, but like you guys allude to, they're not on pace with a lot of the things that need to happen for the game to finish.
Correct. I mean, with They give us, for BO1, we get 25 to 30 minutes. How do they expect us to finish 3 games with 50?
Yeah, it's 30 minutes for best of 1, so in theory it's less time than a best of 3.
Math ain't mathin'.
2.
Also, speaking of math ain't mathin', I believe we talked about this, and I got a hot take on it too. Prize checking. Alright, so that was the other thing. A lot of people have talked about prize checking and long turns. So let's throw some numbers out there. If me and Tiger are playing, and we're playing best of 3, and we go to all 3 games, and each game we checked our prizes for about a minute and a half, we'll just say 2 minutes to make the math easy. By no means are you supposed to look through your deck for 2 minutes, but we all know that first turn is kind of allowing them to look a little longer to set up their plays, right? We all agree on that? That's how it's been for years. If we do that for all 3 games, that's 4 minutes used up in the first game, 8 minutes in the second game, and then 12 minutes used up by the third game. So that's back to what Cal said, with 16 and a half minutes to finish the game. We're taking 4 minutes out of that each time, so now you only have 12 minutes to finish each game. You could cut this cake a couple different ways and look at it. But what I'm getting at in the topic I kind of want you guys to chat about, prize checking. Can we fix it? Is there a way to make it that 2 minutes isn't occurring, and then maybe this 50 plus 1 actually is something that works out better?
So Cal, what do you think about that? Do you think there's a way to fix the unnecessary time used in prize checking, or a way to just make it faster?
With prize checking, I think that if it would be tough to make a solid way to do it without just changing the rules of the game. Because I think if you make a rule where it's you can look at your prize cards at the opening start and then shuffle it up, and then just put it out, and then everyone knows their prize cards, it'll be a big fix. Another way that they could fix it as well is printing a card like Hisuian Heavy Ball again, a card that's just going to be in most decks where they can just use a performed prize check technically, where it's I prize this card. It's going to be good for me to get this card out my prize. Let's just get Heavy Ball. Boom, now I know all my other prizes. Don't need a prize check now. Perfect.
Right.
So I think that would be a huge help as well, because I did remember in the Hisuian Heavy Ball era, I don't feel like prize checking was as big as an issue, because some players just wouldn't do it, because they would just be okay, I can Heavy Ball at some point. I know there's something. I've already checked my Pokemon. I see that's in there. Once I do hit Heavy Ball, I'll figure it out. So I think that could help as well, reprinting a card like that, Hisuian Heavy Ball or something of that nature. We have redeemable ticket right now, but no decks really play that other than Typhlosion or something.
I was going to say on reprints, I know this is the hot take before Tiger gets started, was town map was what some people were talking about. Now again, I know a lot of people don't want to flip over their prizes. That's the other big thing. You don't want to show your opponent what's prized. But to that effect, a card print could help that. What do you think?
Now the only issue that comes with that is that there's still going to be people that don't play the card.
Yes.
So we can't force people to play Heavy Ball to go look at the prizes. But I mean, that definitely would speed up majority of the players doing it. And because you're right, when you get to the point where you're all right, I flipped through my Pokemon, I flipped through my energies, and I looked to see if I had my A-Spec. All right. At that point, I know 80% of my prizes. When I find Heavy Ball, I can get the other 2. Could eliminate a minute and a half of prize checking. Because you explained to us how you do yours, that you separate your energies at the front and the Pokemon to the back, and you kind of order it a little bit to really, really fast to make it easier for you to find stuff. That's the other thing. Players don't know the correct way to prize check. I've seen people pull half their stuff up out of their deck. I've seen people separate it completely. I've seen just specific counts. And then I've seen people literally just scroll through their deck 6 times and still not know what they're looking for. There needs to be, I don't know, maybe a uniformed way to prize check effectively and efficiently that people can get a hold of and learn. Maybe that'll be some type of video we make.
I mean, we've talked about our prize checking in stages. That's kind of what I do. I mean, I've gone over it in a bunch of videos, but I play a card, I look for the card I look for those cards I'm finding with that card. While I'm looking, I see what else is in there, and then if I find it quick, I can take a few more seconds, and I can be all right, cool. and then I got another nest ball in my hand. Let me set this down, play this, finish action, play nest ball, and I can pick it up right where I was and finish looking.
Because that's the other thing. People will, when they do their prize check, they'll play the one card, do the full prize check, then go to, like, put the stuff back the way they need it, and then play the other cards. Like, if you play your buddy and your nest ball and your whatever to grab your pieces, you effectively get more time, because instead of doing 2 minutes of search and then 2 minutes of playing cards, you could have just done it all in the 2 minutes. But that's another rant for another time.
It is. But on that subject, before we move into the meta that we're going to get into, looking at Monterrey and Frankfurt and going into Pittsburgh, how does this affect next season? Or the season, I should say. Play on the table and deck building. Those two things, you know what I mean? Because players are going to need to either play faster, or they're going to continue to play the way they are and get ties. And then also back to deck building. Does that mean that we have more consistent builds? Cal, we'll start with you on this one. Like I said, how does this, all we talked about, affect the play on the table going forward, do you think?
It results in just, it's tougher because I think for more experienced players, they know when to scoop, and they know when is not appropriate to, like, prize check anymore, because even for prize checking, like, I would have a lot of games where if I lose game 1, I know I can't prize check anymore for game 2, because if I waste time, I'm going to end up having a draw or a tie, so I just can't prize check anymore. I just have to just try to win the game as quick as possible, because then I pretty much only have if you lose game 1 inside the new rule set, it's very difficult to actually complete 3 games, so it's kind of just like, oh, I lost game 1, well, if I lost game 1 and I didn't almost immediately scoop, I probably don't have enough time to actually finish 3 games, so I have to try to maybe win this one to force a tie at this point, because the third game just won't finish.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, the new rules make it a little bit tougher, I would say. A lot of these games kind of feel like best-of-1 games, where it's like you're playing essentially best-of-1, not really, because you can technically win the second game, but if your first game is taking 35 minutes to 30 minutes, and then the second game's also like a long, grueling type of resource battle with like decks like Dragapult or Garde usually have. You're probably not finishing the second game, even so. Then you get kind of either a 1-0 situation where your opponent doesn't get a chance to win the second game, or you get yourself 1-0'd where you lost the first game, and then your opponent, you can't actually finish the game against your opponent, so you just lose that one too. And then your best case scenario is that if you lose game 1, if you win game 2 barely, and then you tie, because there's like almost no time left.
100%. Now, going with that, do you think there's a suggestion for the average to newer players, decks that they should play just because they're naturally faster? Or do you think that we should get more players inclined to learn how to scoop?
I think inclined to learn how to scoop, because I don't even think it matters what deck you play, because if you're playing against a Gardevoir or a Dragapult or like one of these slower decks anyways, the game's just going to naturally take a long time because their deck takes a long time. No. And it has like a longer game.
I say me and Tiger just usually before podcasts we play a game or two, kind of get our mind right. He needed some testing with some decks, and he's playing Garde, which is obviously not his character, but we're looking at stuff. But I can tell you right now, the Garde play he had was a lot different than the Garde play I saw in Mexico and I've seen in other chances. So to Cal's point, I mean, just because the deck is naturally slow doesn't mean it has to be played slow.
Right. And understanding we're going to keep going back to this, understanding how to scoop. And for people that don't know what that means, when we say to scoop, it's to pick up your cards, say, I'm going to go into the next game because you accepted you lost.
Yeah.
For a lot of decks, you need to know how long it takes you to win. Some of these 2-4-6 decks, like Raging Bolt and Goldango, take about 15 minutes or so just because you have to accept that your opponent's going to do some actions. Now, Garde in a Garde mirror or a Dragapult mirror, it could take 25 to 30 minutes for game 1 because they're both trying to look for a weakness, look for a misplay. Because a lot of times some of these slower comeback decks lose if they take the first prize card. Because they actually counter catcher. So that's something else you got to understand, is that the mechanics of your opponent's deck shows if they want to play from behind or going forward, and that increases the knowledge that you need to know when to scoop. So if you're playing Raging Bolt and you're going against Garde, you already know it's a bad matchup. And Gardevoir's at 2 prizes, and you've only taken 3, and it's been 17 minutes because all they did was set up their board, and you got to go through 3 1-prizers. If you don't think you can take back-to-back Garde KOs over the next 2 turns, go to the next game. Because Garde will be able to do that. Same thing with Dragapult. Dragapult will go to you get to 1 prize card left, and Iono you, and then spam spread without KO so you can't use your Pheasantipity. These things are what you have to understand. If you don't think that you can come out of it after you've been Iono to 1, look to see what you got, do your burst roar, whatever you need to do, and then if they Iono you to 1 again, just go to the next game because you probably already lost.
Yeah.
All right, so looking.
I would say even
go ahead, Cal.
The small amount of time, even the small amount of time you save sometimes can save you in the game. Like exactly what he was saying. Like even like the 5 minutes of time or 3 minutes of time that you save by scooping within that time after could save you in the game. Especially if you're just waiting to see if your opponent has it and they basically that they have it already. Instead of trying to just hope they misplay, just go to the next game because at that point you're saving yourself 3 to 5 extra minutes. That could really be the difference if you tie or lose. To be honest.
Correct. I'll just use an example. When we were doing our game beforehand, I was playing Garde. He was playing a deck with Dusk Noir in it. I promoted a Curlia to hope that he just didn't have the pieces. He made a misplay, but I still scooped because I wasn't going to be able to come back out of such a deficit. He popped his Dusk Noir onto my Monkey Dory instead of my other Curlia. So even though he made a misplay, I saw the line that he could have won, and I just ended the game. Those are the things. If he takes both Curlias, it's going to take me 3 to 4 turns to get set back up, and he only needed to take 3 more prizes. I don't have enough time to set back up and win. That's what people need to be looking for.
Agreed. I mean, and that's the other token there is, waiting on misplays could help, but if you know you've got a better chance at coming back and shuffling back up and getting back into it, I've always been one of those players that's going to scoop early. I've had players that have been like, what do you mean you're scooping? Or and not in a bad way, not in an upset way, just being like, okay, I can't get this. My line is no longer existent. In a game, I prized some metal energies and looked through and was like, oh, yeah, this isn't going to happen because I can't even do the attack because they're locked up. But deck building. So how does that affect the builds going forward? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. It doesn't really matter deck because Garde's a slow deck, technically, sometimes. Even Slowpoke can be a slow deck, but the person playing it is the one behind the pile.
Actions based upon the deck that you play are more often determined by the player, not just what you have to do in the deck. If you have a deck that does 10 to 15 actions, we'll use older Gardevoir as an example. That Refinement did a Nest Ball, Refinement did a Vessel, Refinement search some more cards. That takes a lot of time. And then if you have somebody that has to think about it in between each action as well, you're adding an extra 15, 20 seconds per action. You've just wasted 5 minutes to Refinement 3 times. And that's a huge amount of time. And for anybody who doesn't know what Refinement is, it's basically like Zoroark's Trade. Discard a card, draw 2 cards.
Just on a single prize.
On the single prize Curlia from a couple formats ago. Now, does that affect things, Cal? Do you think to try and help mitigate time frames for prize checking and for just play, that people should start going to a more consistent style, 4 of copies of things, less 1 of crazy text to try and fix matches, and just be more consistent because there's less things to worry about?
I usually think it's tough because this format right now is so large with so much variety of different decks that are actually good in the format that sometimes tech cards can be valuable if you really think that matchup is that bad against you. But typically I usually say have a very consistent deck and just try to have the best consistent version of your deck, and then you'll usually be fine in most matchups because you can just find wiggle room with your deck being more consistent to beat your opponent. But sometimes one-off techs are very useful, where it's oh, my deck is really bad against let's say Golden Go or something. So let's tech in something that could help me against Golden Go, because if I am trying to beat Golden Go, then having a tech card would actually help me throughout the tournament, especially if I'm hitting multiple. But when you're teching for those lower tier decks where it's oh, my deck's really bad against Farigarath. Let's tech some stuff in walls so I can beat walls. But there's not a lot of walls or like even Crustle at the tournament. It's like, why am I taking my deck for Crustle if there's not a lot of Crustle at the tournament? And it's very unlikely for me to play Crustle. Having these techs in my deck are going to hurt me more than it's going to help me because I'm more often going to be playing decks that aren't Crustle compared to decks that are Crustle.
Agreed.
Just like he said there, guys. The techs that if you put a tech in your deck, make sure that it does make the matchup at least 50-50 because you have this one tech, and if it's possible to be used in more than one matchup, so it's not a dead card in 80% of your other games, that's the other thing. You need to make sure that it can cover the matchup to make it at least a 50-50, and it's not a dead card in 85% of your other games. But in general, consistency is more important than spice.
All right, so moving on, we'll go into a little more about Frankfurt, Monterrey, a little bit of the recap. I mean, I didn't necessarily comb over it, but I do have the day 1 and the day 2 stuff in front of us, and I can see where Dragapult, Raging Bolt, Goldango, and Gardevoir definitely rounded out the top 4, which was what we talked about. Garde won, and yeah, there's definitely a good mix of everything in there. What do you guys think about the meta in Frankfurt and Monterrey? Is it pretty aligned with well, we already talked about it. What about you, Cal? Is it pretty aligned with what you thought?
Yeah, pretty close. What I would say is, for whatever reason, Gardevoir just wins every event this year. I think it's won every event post-rotation except for the one that Christian Labella won with Raging Bolt. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I'm pretty sure it's won like every single event that was TCPI, I think. So... yeah, I expected a lot of Gardevoir. I expected a lot of Dango, and I expected a bit of Charizard, I would say, in some of those other decks. But I would really say, like, the theme of, like, the meta right now is, like, can my deck beat Gardevoir, or is my deck just Gardevoir? Because I think having a bad Gardevoir right now is not a very good plan. Having a good Gardevoir is a good plan, I would say. But you need to make sure that you're beating the other stuff that is, like, trying to counter you. Like, for example, like, I would say, like, Dango, Dragapult, Gardevoir are, like, the top 3 decks. Those are, like, the decks of the format right now. And you should say that my deck is at least good into 2 of these decks if you realistically think you have a chance of winning the event.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Now, the question here with that is that... Gardevoir is winning all these events. Why is it not more popular? Do you think it's because it's a higher skill level deck, or it's just people don't enjoy the play from behind mechanic? Because I know personally there's a lot of players that just panic if they're behind in prize cards. But what's your thoughts on why a play from behind deck is doing so well, but it's not picking up as much percentage if it's the supposed BDIF?
I think that the thing with Gardevoir is that it's an inherently hard deck to play in general. So because Gardevoir and I would say even Dragapult are harder decks to play in the format, even though that they keep winning so much and they keep doing so well, like every tournament I kind of feel like it's like Gardevoir versus Gardevoir or it's Gardevoir versus Dragapult in the finals pretty much. Mm-hmm. It's like one of those 2 decks will meet each other. Sometimes there's Dango in the mix as well, but I would say, like, mainly those are the 2 decks, other than Dango, that realistically have a shot, every shot tournament of winning the event. So I would say, like, but those main 2, like, Dusknoir Dragapult, or even, like, some of the slow Dragapults as well, or Gardevoir, they just have so many decisions to make throughout the game, and they are harder decks to play, so it's just less appealing for, like, newer players or players that don't really like see the deck, play it, and like understand it completely to say like I want to play this deck and this is my deck. They would rather play a deck where it's a little bit easier to play, where it's like maybe like a Goldango Joltik, or even Goldango at times can be a little bit easier to play as well, or some of those other decks where it's like Raging Bolt, where like some of your mistakes are a little bit less punishing, where it's like, oh, I made a mistake here, but like it's kind of okay because like I can Thoughta and Fez and potentially just hit the card anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that right there pretty much writes me in a nutshell as far as a player. We've talked about this plenty of times. I'm getting better with it, but Dragapult or Gardevoir are definitely not one of the decks that if I was a player, I'm looking to pick up. I played in Monterrey. I picked up Goldango. I mean, same thing as Cal just said. Sometimes you can get bailed out by the consistency of your deck, by the luck, the draw. I mean, so a lot of my opinion on that is I think Raging Bolt and Dango being those poof decks actually make it a little more appealing to players, even with the time thing we were talking about, because they are able to finish games quickly. But like I said, that's just my 2 cents on that. I do think Gardevoir is a very skill-expressive deck. I watched him basically tear me apart one game, so I can only imagine what some people are doing to other things that aren't as threatening. So.
The other big question about this meta spread is if, like you said, your deck needs to be able to beat Garde or beat Garde, why do you think there's so much Dragapult in the format?
I think that when people play Dragapult, Dragapult, I think, does fairly well against all the decks consistently, and then it does a pretty close matchup into Gardevoir, even though yet unfavored. It's unfavored into Gardevoir, and I think it's unfavored into Goldango, but it does smash, like, all the other decks, pretty much, where it's picking on all the other decks in the format, and if it has a close-ish Goldango and close-ish Gardevoir, it's going to be good because it does beat up on all the counters to Gardevoir and the counters to Goldango really badly, so that if it is beating up on all those decks, it'll just naturally see itself towards the top and towards like the upper layers of the tournament because it'll just beat all the counters, and then if it hits the Gardevoir and the Dango, it'll have close-ish matchups where you can sometimes outskill them or just get a little lucky and just kind of like run their board over, because sometimes you can just beat any deck with Badoo where you're just like, item lock and phantom dive plus ghost, knockout game, where like those games could happen. So that's why I think it's so just powerful into the format right now with all the Dusknoir and the Dragapult just in general. But I would say right now that's probably why I would say like some people gravitate towards that deck, just because you find yourself in like rock, paper, scissors in formats sometimes where it's like Goldango beats Gardevoir, Gardevoir beats Dragapult, and Goldango's pretty close to beating Gardevoir and Dragapult, but it's a little bit worse to those other decks where it's like the Raging Bolts and the Ethans, and sometimes it could struggle to like some of those other decks where it's like Charizard. So it's like, okay, well, if it struggles to these decks and Dragapult dominates all those lower tier decks, it's kind of got like a rock, paper, scissors where it's like 3 main decks and then the rest of the format is kind of reactive to those 3 decks. And then that's kind of like where the format is.
Now going with that thought of that, if Gardevoir, Dango, and Dragapult are your trifecta of the rock, paper, scissors, and you were choosing 2 of 3, why don't we see more Grimmsnarl or Charizard, saying as how Charizard has a good matchup into Garde and Goldango, but a terrible, specifically Dragapult Dusknoir matchup, and Grimmsnarl has a roughly 50-50 to slightly unfavored into all 3 of them.
Yeah, I would say like those decks are on the lower side because they don't have such a high power level as some of the other decks in the format, where it's like the top players are also only playing those certain decks where it's like they're bringing Gardevoir and they're bringing Dragapult. And then there is top players as well that are bringing Goldango. Some of those other top better players are not really bringing some of those other decks like the Marnie's Grimmsnarl or the Raging Bolt or the Charizard. But there are some where there's like unique cases where it's like a few good, really strong players are bringing these decks, and then it's kind of just like a matchup roulette for them, where it's like they hit the right matchups and they're going to make it through. But if they hit the wrong matchups, like let's say you play like Charizard or something, and you hit like a few Dragapults, you're going to have a bad day.
Right.
And if you hit like a good Gardevoir player or a even a good Goldango player, they might be able to steal a game from you, where it's like, oh, you got a tie out of that situation, or you got a bad loss out of that situation. So that's why sometimes those decks just do a little bit worse, because when it hits those decks like the where they have just such an uneven matchup to inside the big 3, I would say, of the format right now, it kind of just like falters a little bit. And even like Raging Bolt, I would say, is like really good right now too. Like if I had to pick like a 4th deck, I would say like Raging Bolt's like trying to like find its way in there, but it's like it's Golden Gold is supposed to be really good, but it's like relatively close. It's like pretty bad in the Gardevoir, I would say, like in general. And then it's Dragapult is pretty close. Like I would say it's supposed to be like either slightly favored in some people's eyes or slightly unfavored in some people's eyes. But that's why like some of the deck like Raging Bolt, you'll see like sometimes it'll spike and it'll like top 4 worlds or something. Or even like in some of these events it'll make top cut, but it's not necessarily like dominating in numbers like the same way that like a Dragapult or a Gardevoir or Golden Go will.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Valid point. So, I mean, to summarize there, what Calvin said is essentially it's not that they're not great, it's that some of the better players are choosing other decks, and the very few small percentage of good players out there are choosing these decks and catching the matchup roulette. I mean, we have talked about that multiple times with Tiger's many deck decisions and changes before a tournament because, like we always say, you can't face that deck every single round. It's impossible that you're going to. The hope is that you just catch, like Cal said, the right matchup roulette, that you can weave your way through, accept the automatic loss, and then keep moving on and have a good spread against the other decks. Day 2 really didn't change much, by the way. I was looking at that. It still remains the same top 4. And this is for both. They put Frankfurt and Monterrey together in this PokeHive data, which was really easy for us to snag. But yeah, I mean, it's the same top 4.
In the same order.
In the same order, almost a slight same percentage. So it's just showing that they are performing well. My next point was looking forward to Pittsburgh. How does that affect this weekend where it's the first united, we can't say North America because technically Mexico is in North America.
First in a region event.
United States based tournament. How does this meta affect what's going to be a 4,000 plus player tournament? What do you guys think?
All right, Cal, what do you think? Do you think Frankfurt and Monterrey is going to make an effect there? Do you think that North Americans / Canadians are just not going to take too much effect since the Mexico regional and the European regional don't have too much play for us and they're just going to follow what happened at Worlds? Or do you think that enough players are going to combine the stats from Worlds, Monterrey, and Frankfurt and come up with the prediction or projection of their own for this event?
Yeah, they'll probably come up with like a good, I would say like maybe like a good inference on like what they're going to play based off of like the last recent events. I would say like Monterrey and Frankfurt for sure. I would say like the big thing from this last weekend was like TerraBox did like very, very well. And like with TerraBox doing well, and because it did so well, I could see people teching in cards to beat TerraBox for this upcoming weekend, just to make sure that they have a better matchup going into it against that deck. So like I could see Shamans coming into decks, trying to counter the TerraBox for this next weekend, because a lot of those decks they kind of just got crushed by it this last weekend. Now I expect a lot of like less good players to be playing TerraBox just in general, because I think it's one of those decks where it's in and out of the format based off of a card, because Shaman kind of just completely counters you in most instances. So in Frankfurt and in Monterrey, it dominated like both tournaments pretty much. So I think that it'll be out of the format mainly out of this next tournament. I might be wrong, but I think a lot of people are going to have tags for it this weekend, especially like some of those players are like, oh, I just don't want to get cheesed by this deck. I'm just going to put a Shaman in my deck and I'm going to beat them. So I could see like Shamans coming into play. So I would say like TerraBox falling off could be like something for sure. But I would assume a lot of the same. A lot of Gardevoir. I think the top groups are going to move the Jelly Garde though for the next one probably, instead of the Gardevoir that was just played. But I think that there will be a lot of Gardevoir still, a lot of Dragapult, and a lot of Golden Go. So I don't think the meta is going to shift way too much. People might just throw in some text for TerraBox, and TerraBox might drop off in play percentage as well.
Now, with the Garde, you saying going to Jelly Garde, why do you think that we'll flip to a Jelly Garde over this Tool Garde that we just had win 2 events?
I think that they'll flip over to the Jelly Garde to have a good matchup into the Tool Garde that everyone else is going to be playing. I think there'll be more Jelly Garde from the top groups compared to the other Gardevoir.
So you think it's going to be a counter for people copying the better deck?
Yeah. I would expect a lot more Golden Go at this tournament because I think that Golden Go is going to be seen as like the deck to beat Gardevoir or to potentially knock Gardevoir off. So I expect them to switch to a build that they think has a better Golden Go matchup than the last one.
I faced a Jelly Garde. It was definitely difficult. Like I said, that was when we tied, but I had to force myself to take out everything before my items got locked out. So I could see that. That definitely has some validity behind it. I mean, it wouldn't change too much. I mean, it's still a different build, but it does help. That's the whole point of, does that help against the other matchup?
Now, going with everything that we just talked about, is Shaman a tech that people should be putting into their deck this weekend if they have a very bad Terror Box matchup? Do we think Dragapults and Gardevoir should be putting it in there?
Me personally, I wouldn't play Shaman because I would just expect the Terror Boxes to do bad. But do I think people will play Shaman? Yeah, I think there will be a lot more Shaman than there was last week, just because people will be afraid of the deck.
Sounds good. What do you think the dark horse rogue pick of this event will be with everything that's done we've got going on? Garde's doing well, Polt's doing well, Golden Go's doing well. What do you think the dark horse is for this event?
Like a rogue deck or any deck?
You can choose any deck. What? Just something that might, even in a pre-established archetype. What do you think is something that has a good matchup spread going into this event that's not one of your main three?
That's a tough one. If you would have asked me last week, I would have said Terror Box comparatively to this one.
That's fine. Take your time. Talk through it if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, Flareon, I've seen people talking about it being a good pick for this event. I've seen people talking about Grimmsnarl. I've seen people talking about just a straight-up Frost-Ice Monkey Dory.
Crazy thought here. We talked about Ceruledge and
Oh, yeah. I had the thought that Ceruledge could be a good play for this one just because it's just straightforward, has Briar, good Golden Go matchup, has a decent Dragapult matchup. Garde's a little iffy, but you do have the Briar play. But other than that, I mean, you're right. Terror Box would have been the rogue one for Monterrey and Frankfurt, but it's probably going to pick up enough to where it's not. It could be a higher percentage. It could be on the chart for this event.
I think maybe Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt seems like a pretty good deck too. Not a lot of people bring it, and not a lot of top players bring it, but it is a very powerful deck, and it is strong into the meta, I would say.
Do you think Raging Bolt has a better matchup into Jelly Garde than regular Garde because there's more two-prizers?
Probably not. It's still pretty bad in the Garde, I would say.
It just doesn't matter what version, it's still just that bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad in the Gardevoir, yeah.
All right, guys, you heard it there. Yeah. If you want to beat Garde, don't play Raging Bolt.
Play Bolt. Or Bowl, as some people are calling
it. Yeah, the Raging Bolt Owls.
Bowl. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. The last thing I was going to say was this is the last format before we're adding Megas. So, in my opinion, I don't think many things will change. I agree with these two, which I honestly think people are... If this is their first regional back, they didn't go to Monterrey or Frankfurt, they're looking at Worlds, they're comparing the results from Monterrey and Frankfurt, and they're coming up with their own idea on what they should play with whatever cards they have available, too. That's the other side of this. Being Pittsburgh is local to us, there's a lot of locals I know that are just taking the deck they've been playing for months because that's all they can take. Not everybody has the ability to switch around as much as some of the professional or semi-professional players or ones who do it on a regular basis. But yeah, no, I think we'll have a lot of the same going into this. I hate to say it, I think Garde probably wins again. I think it does.
If you were to make a bet on it, do you think Garde wins this event as well?
It's close, but I think Gardevoir is a really good play right now. So if Gardevoir won, I wouldn't be too surprised. I think either Gardevoir is going to win or a hard counter to Gardevoir is going to win, and that's kind of the way that.
So what Cal just said is that either Gardevoir is going to win or he's winning it with whatever he decided to play to beat Gardevoir. That should be about it for us, guys.
Any shout-outs or anybody you want to talk to there, Cal? I know you do have some sponsors and stuff. Anything you want us to put in the channel for you?
Yeah, shout out to Tabletop Village, FCBC, Beckett Collectibles, and Heritage Auctions.
All right, you heard it here. Like I said, man, is definitely a well-known player with a bunch of sponsorships here in the community. So definitely shout out. I mean, FCBC, we've been trying to talk to them for a while now, haven't we?
FCBC is a good company. Rose Poke is a good store. That's good people there. And Cal himself uses the sleeves. It's not just sponsored through him. He actually plays with them.
No, they're good sleeves. I think once you work them in, they're good sleeves.
Yeah,
I think they are rough.
They are very slick.
That's what I mean, too. They're like falling all over the place. But after we worked them in, oh my God, I don't think I found a better sleeve. So,
all right, guys, that's it for us. Stay lucky.
Yep.